I really, like so many things in my life, just sort of fell into the saxophone. I wanted to play the trumpet originally, and back in the old days, in the not anymore. No, nothing against it. But back in the old days, in the town that I grew up in, and many towns across the country, there were school music programs, which unfortunately we don't have so much anymore. But just about everybody would sign up to play an instrument, and I signed up to play the trumpet in 3rd grade at 8. And we went to the store, and all they had were clarinets. There were no trumpets, and I had to have something that day, of course. So I took a clarinet home, and I played that for 2 years. And after 2 years, there were no saxophones in the school band, and he had a saxophone there at the school at that point. And he suggested that I switch. I guess I was maybe the best clarinet player of all the clarinet players, and thought it'd be easy for me to switch. And I said, no, I don't want to switch to the saxophone. And I fought and fought and fought. But soon after that, the stage band came to our elementary school. From the high school, they had a stage band, and they had a drum set and an electric bass, and they wore snazzy satin jackets with ascot ties. And he said, if you play the saxophone, when you get to high school, you can play in the stage band. And so I sort of traded up for a better outfit. I said, okay, I can do that. I switched to saxophone when I was 10, and I loved it right away, and it just, it really opened up the world of music to me. So I'm very grateful to that guy. Mr. Toback, I'll never forget him, leaned on me to play the saxophone.
Yeah, I guess we all started rather young. I started playing piano, I think, when I was 5 or 6 years old. And it was my first instrument, and it, again, school band program, a great band program, and it came time to pick an instrument, and my only motive was that my best friend in school was playing saxophone, and I thought we could hang out more if I too played the saxophone. That was truly my entire motive. The only other thing I remembered sax on a recording at that time, at the 9 or 10 years old, was Boots Randolph Yakety sax. My dad used to play that. Yeah, no, give it to Boots. That guy was an unbelievable player. I mean, it became kind of a joke song because of the Benny Hill theme, but what a technical player this guy was.
That stuff's not easy.
Yeah, no. And a year or two later, I knew I wanted to be a professional musician the rest of my life, which I thought was playing in the school band forever. I became a band geek and went to all of the band clinics and camps, and I was the head geek. I was the drum major. I was the biggest geek of all time, and I still am a geek. Who am I kidding? And nobody back where I grew up in Hagerstown, they had no idea what jazz music was. I finally got to high school. We got in the big band class, and there was a chart that came up in front of us, and being playing in a school band, you learn to read everything literally. Right? As it, and jazz charts aren't literal. They're just kind of like, phrasing and stuff are kind of suggested, the notes, but the articulation, everything for a classical player is very literal. So we were playing this Glenn Miller song. And I go, I don't think that sounds right. I don't think... And my band director says, I don't know. So then we listened to some recordings and go, aha. So I kind of stayed this classical band geek into college. And then one very late day in about 1982, studying for a class at the University of Miami, I heard that guy down there on the David Letterman show. And I'm like, wow, what the heck is this? And then I went back and I got his Hideaway album, and so he said, no, Voyeur won the Grammy. Then I got the Voyeur album, I was like, wow, then I got Backstreet, and then I just became, an absolute David Sanborn clone at the University of Miami. And there were 65 of us down there practicing David Sanborn licks in the dressing room. You laugh, I am dead serious, trust me. We were all, how does he crack that? Ooh, what do we do? And I still, I finally got to meet him one day at Bobby Dukoff's house. He's the guy who makes the mouthpiece that David's playing on. And he happened to live down in Florida, and I was there going to get a mouthpiece, of course, because David Sanborn played one. And who comes cruising up in this big Cadillac with the top down, hanging all cool in Miami Beach? David Sanborn. I went, that's it, brother, I'm going after him. So, never thought that was him. He had the gangsta lean before they called it the gangsta lean.
Is it just me, but I never would have picked you for like a convertible Cadillac.
He was pimping. He was sitting in the middle seat pimping, I'm telling you. He was just
learn something every day.
So, and I saw that and I went, that was my inspiration. And to this day, that's still my inspiration, to get a Cadillac and cruise Miami Beach.
Well, I actually started music when I was 9 years old. My parents got me started playing the accordion. And even to this day I get the shakes when I hear that song. But luckily,
I had another one.
I was very lucky actually, because 6 months into my career of the accordion, they passed a law in California: play an accordion, go to prison. So I was able to get out of that, and I was fairly scarred for about 2 years, and at the age of 11 in junior high school, I thought I would give music another try, and my uncle had a great record collection, and he had a record by a guy named King Curtis, who was one of these honkin' tenor players, and I just felt an attraction to that sound, that big tenor sound, and he had Dexter Gordon records also, and again, like this big, meaty sound, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to play the tenor saxophone. I didn't think about alto or anything like that. I went in the band room, I looked around, I saw a tenor saxophone, and I started playing that, and I just, I don't know, maybe I kind of like the shape of the instrument. There's a lot of intangibles why you pick something over another, but for me it was, hearing those records really kind of got me started, and not that I ever thought I could ever really truly emulate those guys, but they certainly inspired me. And when I was 16 years old, got into high school, and my high school music director was also a professional musician. He played with the Don Ellis Orchestra, which was one of the pioneering big bands that sort of brought kind of fusion music into big bands. And I was very, very lucky. My summer vacation when I was 16, I got a chance to audition for a horn and string section. We went to Asia on a USO tour. We backed up Natalie Cole and the Pointer Sisters. And, it was an amazing experience, and I got home after that trip. I told my parents, that's it, I want to be a professional musician. They freaked out. And I was also, I'd also taken some flying lessons. I was into that too, and I told my parents, well, if I can't be a professional musician, I want to be a fighter pilot. My mom waited 15 seconds and then said, music doesn't sound so bad. So that's how I got started.
How come I'm the only one with the child stool up here?
I think you are the tallest, though, Rick, so this evens out.
I'm like the Rodney Dangerfield of this group. I have no respect. We have a lot in common, Richard, because my first professional gig in Allentown, Pennsylvania, I grew up in Allentown in Center City, and my first professional gig, I think at maybe 11 years old, 12 years old, was with the Newport Conservatory Accordion Band. It was 28 accordions. 28 accordions versus 3 trumpets. And,
versus 3 trumpets?
Well, that's how I looked at it.
And still do.
Anyway, I started playing when I was 8 as well. And I went in, I remember the same moment, and hearing you guys talk about that moment in school when they offer you the band instrument, and it was a great deal because the school actually had a whole battery of instruments to pick from, and you went in and you got to pick. But I remember I looked at the instruments to consider, and I saw the saxophone, and I knew right away it was way too complicated for me. It just, and I didn't realize how hard this was, but there was a trumpet in the closet, in my mom's closet, because my brother was a trumpet player till he went and played football and got a concussion. That's a whole other story. But so I found this in the closet, and so picked it up, put a mouthpiece in it, and played a note and got a note out of it. Now, those of you who've tried to play a trumpet, it's not everybody can even get a sound out of it, but it was coming out right away. And it worked out. And the only other instrument I was going to consider, I really wanted to play drums. But we lived in a row home in the middle of Allentown I have 4 brothers, 1 sister. I told my dad I want to play drums, and he said, No, no way. But what you don't realize is a trumpet is equally as loud and it's portable. So you can actually sneak up behind people, which is a lot of fun when you have that many brothers and a sister.
It's really fun. We've been on the road a little bit together.
But anyway, I started playing the trumpet, and my biggest hero when I first started to play trumpet was a guy named Herb Alpert, who was a huge pop star, and I got to see his show at the Allentown Fairgrounds, and later I got to ask him about that show, and when I got to talk to him about that show, because I was maybe like 9 or 10, and I talked to him about a year ago about it, and he said, I remember that show at the Allentown Fairgrounds because Perry Como played the night before, and he had gone to see Perry Como and was sold out. And he said, you know, Rick, I was so worried that nobody was going to come see me. And of course it was sold out, but he was really nervous about that, and it was so fun to talk to my idol after all those years, and he started me out, and I could play along with all of his, so Mom would, you know, call the neighbors and, hey man, check out little Ricky playing all of his Herb Alpert. So you gotta go real crass on that stuff, because that's what. Anyway, that's how I got started.